So yesterday we talked about how Miriam Cates is probably one of the most dangerous Conservative MPs there are. And we went over her entire piece, why she was trying to blame essentially universities for creating all these lefty people, and there was all these quote useless degrees. Like I say, plenty of people in the comments after that talking about their experience and their again useless degrees and how much they actually earn with those useless degrees, and again all the skills those degrees have actually given them to go on in life and different jobs. And maybe they're not doing what they initially studied, but they gain skills from that degree. So by the polls, and even now, it does still look like that Miriam Cates is looking to be ousted. But of course, she's not the only, shall we say, very, very problematic Conservative MP, certainly up in the north. Of course, obviously in Ashfield, there is, of course, Lee Anderson. And I very, very much sympathize with the people of Ashfield that you've elected a complete and utter, well, lunatic who really does not represent, or at least claim to represent, the people who he says he does. He absolutely doesn't. He's never really done anything or stood up really for the people of Ashfield. And he's proven that time and time again. And we're going to go over some of the comments in this piece about the people who are plotting to, get rid of him, to unseat him, because he really should not be a Conservative MP of that area. And I very too much sympathise. Here in Barnsley, we almost, and I say almost, Dan Jarvis had about a majority of about 2,000. That's how close it was of a Brexit party MP, potentially. So we could have almost elected. And trust me, after Brexit, this person would have crossed the aisle and become a Conservative. And if you think Lee Anderson's bad, well, oh boy, they would be performing the ultimate double act. And I'll tell you now, if you if you think it's bad with Lee Anderson on their own, like I always keep on telling people, we dodged a bullet. We dodged the absolute bullet by not electing that person to be our MP. Because oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, yeah, we sure did. But they would have formed probably the ultimate double act, and they would have been incredibly just as embarrassing, saying just as ludicrous stuff, just as Lee Anderson is. And Anderson is really trying to sort of go into the whole woke culture stuff, certainly gender politics stuff that he wants to say that will win him the next election. But the polls have always been very clear that's not really the British public's current number one priority, and he seems to get it wrong at almost every point. So I'm going to go quickly over this piece in the Byline Times, because I think some of these comments really do highlight, certainly, once again, tactical voting, how important it is, because the last thing we really want is Lee Anderson to hang on there, literally by a thread. Just as we saw in Uxbridge, we need to make sure this guy gets the boot, because there's certainly another large group of Tories, along with Miriam Cates, and we hope Liz Truss do get the boot from the Tory party, because if they lose their job, then they lose a lot of power. But some of them, as I said just this week about our video about Liz Truss, she isn't going to go away. She's going to be an incredibly loud voice in the non-parliamentary party. And of course, she has her own crazy free market fundamentalist think tank, which will be, I'm sure, trying to influence the party for some time to come. So let's get on into reading some of these comments, because some of these comments from these constituencies really do highlight the absolute embarrassment that some of these people feel with Lee Anderson being their MP. And to be honest, I sympathize. I do really sympathize with a lot of you. So it starts off here. So constituent Jim Krober, a backer of the new Lee Anderson watch, had this to say: "It's time for Anderson to go. His politics swing from dog whistling to hate speech to acting like a lapdog for the privileged, neither of which are representative of what the majority, either locally or nationally, want or need. As someone who spent a lifetime fighting racism, I find his divisive views and the extremist company he keeps at odds with anything resembling decency. Another resident had this to say. Aaron Rangi said, "We hope our members of parliament can represent our views and fight for our corner. However, when your MP is Lee Anderson, you are not given that opportunity. From blocking constituents on social media to ludicrous claims that 30 pence is enough for a nutritious meal, Lee Anderson has continuously shown how unfit he is to represent the people of Ashfield in Parliament. His views on climate change and migration are not just abhorrent, they are dangerous." Another constituent said he acts like a spoilt child having a temper tantrum. He seems to debate in a civilized manner and then instead just blocks anyone who disagrees with him. He appears on TV trying to feed his friend cat food, they added. Apparently, he's putting Ashfield on the map. I think he is making us a laughing stock. And that is really I think, seems to be the prevailing view from most people. And I think if you were to poll people, I don't think Lee Anderson would keep his seat. I really don't. Because Lee Anderson, at the next general election, there is a lot of stuff anyone can really push back on him and just really tear him to shreds on a ton of his stuff. Because in a actual debate, he is going to fall to pieces on that. Jim Coburn also said, "I feel like I have been disenfranchised by an MP who ignores my emails on serious issues and then blocks me from social media from asking why I have not received a reply. At the next election, we need to elect an MP who represents his constituents and then replies to them with the convert and converses with them, regardless of views, thus offering representation in Westminster to all." And that is something that I think we should really expect from all MPs, regardless if you, again, whatever you vote and your MP, wasn't of your party that you voted for, they should have a responsibility to reply to you and represent your concerns, regardless, even if they did not vote for you. This feeling seems to be one I have heard constantly when I've talked or interacted with other people who live up in the north and have had a new Conservative MP. Seems to be the prevailing view, that they feel that they have been disenfranchised, that they feel they are not listened to, and that their concerns and issues that they take to their MP are not listened to because, well, they're not Conservative voters, and something that particular Conservative doesn't feel keen to. So this is also something that is worth bringing up. So, because I think this is something we really need to address, but I think it is also something that could damage a lot of these efforts to really uproot some of these really bad Conservative MPs, especially up in the north. So, constituents fear that despite the scandals, Anderson will keep his role as an MP because opposition parties are in disarray. The local Labour Party suffers from a deep division between the left-wing Corbynistas and the right of the party. Now, I feel the Byline Times have actually done a disservice to the local Labour Party in Ashfield by calling them the right of the party. I think those people, if you were to generally ask them, they'd be very much left-wing. Not as left-wing, of course, as the left-wing Corbynistas, but I do feel that calling them the right of the party is somewhat disingenuous, when in reality, they are more probably, certainly very left-wing, they are probably progressives, but also probably left centrists. And this is the big thing that you saw up in this area, something that doesn't get talked about a lot. After 2017, Corbyn started to lose his popularity a lot in these areas. And it was those people, those left centrists, those people who were progressive, not as full on board with the left wing Corbynistas, as the Byline Times has called them here. they were the ones who were ringing the alarm bells, saying, "Yeah, we're losing constituents. We're turning, Corbyn's turning people off. He's turning voters off." And yet, these people again were accused of trying to undermine Corbyn, undermine Labour's policy up here, when all they were doing were ringing the alarm bells, and they got proved right in the 2019 general election. Corbyn, his popularity was not as strong as people initially thought, especially after 2017. You may remember, well, a couple of weeks ago now, we covered the whole article and blog from a left from a socialist who said, "Yeah, look, we really need to rethink the Corbyn era." And he even said himself that, look, Corbyn's popularity had dropped. It had become a problem that a lot of people in Corbyn's sphere, people who supported Corbyn, did not want to accept. And even Lee Anderson's origin story actually comes from this deep division. He went to a Momentum meeting where, again, according to Lee Anderson, he said that he was chastised by a member of Momentum because he hadn't read Karl Marx. And I think it really does go to show you that there's a lot of people on the left who aren't really good at politics and sort of trying to win people over, which is a big problem. And that is part of the reason why in Ashfield that deep division in the Labour Party still is there, because you still have those left-wing Corbyn people who are obsessed with Corbyn, who are sure that everything will be amazing if we could only bring Corbyn back. But as I've said before, no, he's gone. You've got to move on, which always worried me that if Corbyn had won, he would have become a massive cult of personality, and that would have in itself created a ton of problems within the Labour Party. But that's that's another discussion for another time. But that division was Lee Anderson's origin story. We've talked about that before, so it is worth really sort of bringing that up, that division has to be addressed. That, look, if you are a left-wing Corbynista in that constituency and you want to get rid of Lee Anderson, your only option really for getting rid of Lee Anderson is to vote Labour. Now, you might not like Keir Starmer or pick whatever particular issue those people are complaining about that week. Your only option is to vote Labour, really, in that constituency, to get rid of Lee Anderson. So, what are you going to do? Would you prefer you kept Lee Anderson for another 4 years because you didn't feel that Labour Party candidate was pure enough for you, or you just didn't happen to like that particular current version of the Labour Party for whatever reason, so you felt, I'm not even going to vote or waste your vote on another party that wouldn't have won? That's the truth, and that's why we'll say to everyone who is of that stripe, if you want to get rid of Lee Anderson, chances are your only option really to get rid of him is to vote Labour. That that's me off my soapbox. And I've said before, we've got to be aware of these progressive tragedies of happening, just like we saw in Uxbridge. And the worst thing ever would be to see someone like Lee Anderson hang on to his seat by literally just a couple of hundred votes because people just decided, well, I don't want to vote for Labour because reasons, when you could have voted for Labour and completely gotten rid of and defeated the Tories. And as we said before, if there had been this complete three-sweep by-election defeat, the Tories would be in an absolute chaotic whirlwind. They'd be in a worse position even now. And even though they lost those 2 other seats, losing 3 seats would have been an even bigger loss for them. And I agree with the blog that we saw on Compass just a couple of weeks ago. We went over that. It's a complete progressive tragedy, because every time we see this, a progressives split, progressives divide and the Tories conquer. They profit off that divide because of that progressive split. But again, we're getting into other things now. But this is something else that is worth bringing up, because another constituent of the town also brings this up. So Jessica Townsend, someone who's part of the campaign group MP Watch, had this to say. Anderson is a Marmite politician. He does have some fans, but they mostly seem dismayed by him. And we are interested in unseating Lee Anderson because he is a climate denier. We are a non-political, we are non-politically partisan, but he has been part of the net zero scrutiny group of climate denialist politicians, and there is no room in them for them in this climate crisis. She noted that many constituents are in the former mining area that have serious problems with fuel and food poverty, saying that many pubs and local restaurants have closed down, giving a very serious downbeat aspect to the area. Meanwhile, Anderson enjoys an over £100,000 job with GB News and takes donations from the Carlton Club. So there is every opportunity at this next election to really get rid of Lee Anderson over in Ashfield. And like I say, we should really look at, and I think this is a point where progressives, I think, need to really get together and I think start publishing a hit list. I really do, of this. This is how bad this politician is, like Lee Anderson, Miriam Cates, and just go, look, if you want to get rid of this politician, vote Labour. If you want to get rid of that politician, vote Lib Dem. You know, I don't think it's necessarily that bad an idea for us to start really thinking about that and thinking which conservative politicians should we really prioritize getting rid of for not to be in the next parliament, because certainly someone like Miriam Cates, as I've said before, is very dangerous to the UK education system. She's very, very much a right-wing populist. Also, Liz Truss as well, also very dangerous too. I think certainly someone should be certainly gotten rid of at the next general election as well. So I think it is potentially an idea that progressives should really look at and start to think about how to fight this. And we are seeing that. We are seeing that develop now, this sense of tactical voting does work. Uxbridge was a perfect example of tactical voting unfortunately failing, but it did show that if those Green voters or the Lib Dem voters had voted Labour, they would have defeated the Tories there, and they would have delivered the Tories an absolute thumping in a 3-sweep by-election victory, and they would be in an absolute panic mode. And don't get me wrong, they are in panic mode, because especially the seat they lost up in the north, very, very has made a lot of Tories very, very uncomfortable, especially with the majority that they're used to enjoy in that seat. So that has made them very, very uncomfortable for the upcoming general election. And of course, down south as well, the Lib Dem victory has made them also very uncomfortable in that sort of blue wall area as well, again. So when the general election comes around, we have to really instill, and I think we have to be really instilling now, the importance of tactical voting and telling people, look, you may not necessarily 100% like Labour or the Lib Dems, but they're going to be a damn sight better them being in power than, your current Conservative MP. Example in case, Lee Anderson, and I think that's the case of we really have to get out there and start, telling people this is tactical voting. This is why it is important. This is why, especially at the upcoming next general election, especially if you are a progressive, the opportunities for the potential next two parliaments are going to be pretty big. And if we can deliver, like the Tories, an under 100 seat return, delivering them an absolute thumping defeat, then the possibilities to get progressive policies passed in the next two parliaments are exceptional. And we have to really consider that. We have to consider the long run, because if we don't, then we are wasting a massive opportunity. So as always. Thank you very much, of course, for watching. And of course, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.